The courtroom was so silent you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Nathaniel sat there, adjusting his $3,000 bespoke suit, looking at his wife, Catherine, with eyes so cold they burned. He thought he had already won. He thought his high-priced legal team and his carefully constructed lies about her mental stability had sealed the deal. He was moments away from taking full custody of their son, Leo. But he didn't know that inside Catherine's manila folder sat a single document that would not only destroy his case, but incinerate his entire life. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about who the mistress really was, and the secret growing inside her that wasn't what anyone, especially Nathaniel, expected. The divorce papers didn't come with a scream or a fight. They came with a whisper, delivered by a process server named Gary on a Tuesday afternoon, while Catherine "Cat" Caldwell was in the middle of her shift at Seattle Children's Hospital. Cat looked down at the envelope in her hands. The sterile smell of the hospital corridor seemed to sharpen, stinging her nose. "Caldwell, Caldwell." "I'm sorry, Dr. Caldwell," the server mumbled, looking at his shoes. "He said you were expecting this." She wasn't. Just that morning? Nathaniel had kissed her on the forehead before leaving for his architectural firm, Caldwell and Associates. He had reminded her to pick up the dry cleaning. He had made a joke about the rain. They were planning a trip to Aspen in December, or so she thought. Catherine walked into the break room, her hands trembling so violently she dropped the envelope. It slid across the linoleum, stopping against the leg of a table. When she finally tore it open, the words swam before her eyes, but a few phrases jumped out like physical blows: irreconcilable differences, unstable home environment, petition for full physical and legal custody of the minor child, Leo Caldwell. "Full custody," she whispered, the sound choking in her throat. She called Nathaniel immediately. It went straight to voicemail. She called the house landline. Nothing. She called his assistant, terrified that something had happened, that maybe he had a breakdown. "Mr. Caldwell is in a meeting and cannot be disturbed," the assistant, a young woman named Sarah, said. Her voice was clipped, robotic. "He has instructed us to direct all communication to his attorney, Mr. Samuel Halloway." Catherine drove home in a daze. The Caldwell house was a masterpiece of modern architecture, perched on the south slope of Queen Anne Hill, overlooking the Space Needle and the gray sprawl of downtown Seattle. Nathaniel had designed it himself. It was all glass, steel, and sharp angles. People called it the jewel box. Now, it looked like a cage. When she pulled into the driveway, the locks had already been changed. Her key wouldn't turn. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the living room, she could see movement. She banged on the door, the rain beginning to soak through her scrubs. Nate opened the door. "Where is Leo?" The heavy oak door swung open, but it wasn't Nathaniel. It was a security guard she had never seen before, a large man with a thick neck and an earpiece. "Mrs. Caldwell, you need to leave the premises," he said, his voice flat. "Mr. Caldwell has obtained a temporary restraining order based on your erratic behavior." "Erratic behavior? I'm a pediatrician. I've lived here for 10 years. Where is my son?" "Leo is with his father. Please step back, or I will be forced to call the police." Catherine stepped back, the rain mingling with the hot tears streaming down her face. She looked up at the second-floor window, Leo's bedroom. The curtains were drawn tight. She didn't know it yet. But the man she had slept next to for a decade, the man who had held her hand through 2 miscarriages before Leo was born, had been planning this day for 6 months. He hadn't just fallen out of love. He was systematically erasing her. She spent that night in a Motel 6 off Aurora Avenue, staring at the popcorn ceiling, realizing she had no access to their bank accounts. Her credit cards were declined. He had frozen everything. The next morning, she walked into the office of Evelyn Harper. Evelyn was a legend in King County family law, a woman who wore Chanel suits and smoked clove cigarettes outside the courthouse. Rumors said she had a heart made of tungsten. Evelyn read the filing, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She didn't look up for 10 minutes. Finally, she closed the folder. "He's coming for blood." "Catherine," Evelyn said, her voice raspy. "He's hired Sam Holloway. Sam is a shark. He doesn't want a settlement. He wants to destroy you so he doesn't have to pay alimony. And he wants the boy to hurt you." "Why?" Catherine sobbed. "We were happy. We were fine." Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Men like Nathaniel Caldwell don't burn down their own houses unless they've already built a new one somewhere else, or unless they have someone waiting to move in. "There's no one else," Catherine insisted. "Nate is obsessed with his work. He's an architect. He barely has time for us, let alone an affair." Evelyn lit a cigarette, despite the no smoking sign on her own desk. There is always someone else, honey. And in a case this aggressive, she's usually closer than you think. The first hearing was a bloodbath. It was held 3 weeks later in the King County Superior Court. The rain was lashing against the courthouse windows, a grim backdrop to the destruction of Catherine's reputation. Nathaniel sat at the plaintiff's table. He didn't look at her once. He looked pristine, calm. The picture of a concerned, grieving father forced to make a hard choice. Beside him sat Sam Holloway, a man with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Catherine sat with Evelyn. She felt small, despite her tailored navy blazer. She hadn't seen Leo in 21 days. Every time she tried to FaceTime him, Nate's phone had connectivity issues, or Leo was sleeping. "Your Honor," Holloway began, standing up and buttoning his jacket. "We are here today to protect a 7-year-old boy, a boy whose mother has unfortunately spiraled into a dangerous pattern of neglect and substance abuse." Catherine gasped. Evelyn squeezed her arm hard, silencing her. "Substance abuse?" The judge, a weary man named Judge Harrison, asked. "Doctor, Caldwell works long, grueling hours at the hospital." Holloway continued, his voice smooth as silk. "The stress has taken a toll. We have affidavits here from 2 former nannies stating that Mrs. Caldwell frequently came home smelling of wine and was unable to wake up in the mornings to take Leo to school. We have credit card statements showing excessive purchases at liquor stores. And, most concerning, we have a report from a private investigator showing Dr. Caldwell buying prescription opiates in a parking lot 3 weeks ago." "That's a lie," Catherine screamed, standing up. "I'm a doctor. I don't buy drugs in parking lots." "Sit down, Dr. Caldwell." Judge Harrison snapped. Evelyn pulled her down. "Let me handle this." "Your Honor," Evelyn said, standing up coolly. "These allegations are fabricated. My client is a respected pediatrician. We request immediate drug testing to prove her sobriety." "We would welcome that," Holloway countered, "but the hair follicle test will take time. In the interim, for the safety of the child, we ask that Mr. Caldwell retain primary custody." Then Holloway played his ace. He produced a video. It was grainy, taken from a security camera inside their home, a camera Catherine didn't know existed. The timestamp was from 2 months ago. In the video, Catherine was in the kitchen, holding a glass of wine. She dropped the glass. It shattered. She slumped against the counter, sliding down to the floor, weeping. Leo walked into the frame in his pajamas. Catherine didn't seem to notice him. "This," Holloway said, pointing a finger at the screen, "is not a safe environment." Catherine remembered that night. It was the anniversary of her father's death. She had had 1 glass of wine. She had slipped on a spilled ice cube. She was crying because she missed her dad. But on that screen, in black and white, she looked like a hopeless drunk. "He edited it," Catherine whispered to Evelyn. "He cut out the part where I got up and hugged Leo. He cut out the part where Nate walked in and ignored us both." The judge looked at Catherine with pity, but also with suspicion. The narrative was setting like concrete. "Temporary custody is granted to the father, Nathaniel Caldwell," Judge Harrison ruled. "The mother is granted supervised visitation for 1 hour a week at the courthouse center, pending the results of the psychological evaluation and drug screening." Supervised visitation. Like she was a criminal. Like she was a danger to the son she had breastfed. The son she read to every single night. As the bailiff called the next case, Nathaniel finally looked at her. He turned his head slowly. There was no sadness in his face. There was a smirk. A tiny, imperceptible smirk that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Catherine felt a cold rage ignite in her stomach. It replaced the grief. It replaced the shock. Outside the courtroom, Evelyn lit another cigarette under the shelter of the awning. He prepared for this. Catherine. That video was stored and saved. The nannies were paid off. This is an orchestrated hit. "Who is she?" Catherine asked, her voice steady for the first time in weeks. "Who? You said there's always someone else. Nate is meticulous. He doesn't do his own laundry. He doesn't cook his own food. He wouldn't take Leo full-time unless he had help. He has a staff for everything. He needs a wife replacement." Evelyn exhaled a plume of smoke. "We need a PI, a good one, not the corporate guys Nate uses. We need someone who digs through trash." "Do it," Catherine said. "I don't care what it costs. Sell my jewelry, sell my car, find out who she is." It took 2 weeks for the PI, a man named Miller, who smelled like stale coffee and old leather, to bring Catherine the envelope. They met in a diner on the outskirts of Tacoma, far away from Seattle's prying eyes. Miller slid the photos across the table. "You were right," Miller said. "He's not living alone in that glass house." Catherine picked up the first photo. It was taken through a telephoto lens. It showed Nathaniel on the balcony of their home. Standing next to him, wearing one of Catherine's silk robes, was a woman. She was young, shockingly young, maybe 24. She had long, cascading blonde hair and a figure that looked like it belonged on Instagram. "Her name is Brianna Wallace," Miller said. "Goes by Bree. She's an intern at his firm, 23 years old. Graduated last May." Catherine flipped to the next photo. This one made her bile rise. It was taken at a park, Discovery Park. Nate was there. Bree was there. And running between them, flying a kite, was Leo. Bree was laughing, holding Nate's hand with one hand and pointing at Leo with the other. They looked like a family, a perfect, catalogue-ready family. "She's playing mommy," Catherine hissed. "It gets worse," Miller said. He hesitated. "I did a background check on Miss Wallace. She's..." Ambitious. She's from a small town in Oregon. Lots of debt. Student loans. Credit cards maxed out. But 3 months ago, her debts were paid off. In full. One lump sum wire transfer from an LLC registered in the Caymans. Nate, Catherine said. Most likely. But here is the kicker. Miller pulled out a document. It was a printout from a social media page, a private Instagram account that Bree thought was locked down. It was a photo of a positive pregnancy test. The caption read, "Our little secret. Expanding the empire. #blessed future Mrs. Caldwell." The date on the post was 4 weeks ago. Catherine stared at the image. A baby. Nate had told Catherine he didn't want any more children. He said Leo was enough. He said he was too old to start over. "She's pregnant," Catherine said, her voice hollow. "Looks that way," Miller said. "And if she's pregnant, that's why he's rushing the divorce. That's why he needs full custody. He wants to wipe the slate clean, replace you, replace the family dynamic, and insert her before the baby bump shows." Catherine looked at the photo of Bree wearing her robe. She looked at the pregnancy test. "He wants a war." Catherine stood up, throwing money on the table. He just started one with the wrong woman. He forgot one thing. "Miller, what's that?" "I'm a doctor," she said, her eyes flashing. "I know how to read medical charts, and I know Nate's medical history better than he does." Meaning? Catherine smiled. A terrifying, sharp smile. 2 years ago, Nate had a vasectomy. I signed the paperwork myself. The next morning, the Seattle sky was a bruised purple, heavy with the promise of a storm. Catherine sat in the waiting room of the Pacific Urology Center, her leg bouncing nervously. She wasn't here as a patient. She was here on a fishing expedition, praying that her status as a wife, technically still legally married, and her medical proxy status hadn't been revoked in Nate's scorched earth campaign. She had called ahead, using her doctor. Caldwell voice, the one that commanded nurses in the ER during a code blue. It had worked. Doctor. Aris. A kind-faced man with silver hair who had treated Nathaniel 2 years prior, walked into the consultation room. He looked uncomfortable. "Catherine," he said, closing the door softly. "I shouldn't be doing this. Nathaniel's lawyers sent a cease and desist regarding his medical records just this morning. If I show you his file, I could lose my license." Catherine stood up, her eyes pleading. "Doctor, Aris George, please. He is trying to take Leo away from me. He's telling the court I'm an unstable addict. You've known us for years. You know that's not true." "Doctor," Aris sighed, rubbing his temples. "I heard. It's a shock. Nate always seemed so controlled. He's not controlled anymore. He's dangerous," Catherine said, leaning over the desk. "George, I don't need the physical file. I just need you to confirm what I already know. The procedure 2 years ago, the vasectomy, was it successful?" "Doctor." Aris hesitated. He looked at the door, then back at Catherine. He sat down and lowered his voice to a whisper. "The procedure was textbook. Catherine, bilateral vasectomy. We severed and cauterized the vas deferens. And the follow-up," Catherine pressed. "The sperm count analysis 3 months post-op. Did he do it?" "He did." Aris nodded. "He came in exactly 90 days later. And the result? Azoospermia," Aris said firmly. 0 sperm count. He was completely sterile. I called him with the results myself. I remember because he made a joke about shooting blanks being the price of freedom." Catherine exhaled, a sound that was half laugh, half sob. So, it's medically impossible for him to father a child naturally. Unless there was spontaneous recanalization, which is incredibly rare, less than 1 in 4,000, and usually happens early on. Given the cauterization method we used, it's virtually impossible. Why do you ask? Catherine's smile was cold, terrifyingly devoid of humor. Because George, his new girlfriend, is 3 months pregnant, and she's telling everyone it's his. Doctor. Aris's eyebrows shot up. Oh, exactly. Oh. Catherine picked up her purse. Thank you. George, you haven't shown me a thing. We were just catching up. She walked out of the clinic into the pouring rain, feeling the first surge of genuine power she had felt in weeks. Nate was sterile. He knew he was sterile. So why was he playing along with Bree's pregnancy? The realization hit her like a physical blow as she sat in her car. Nate didn't know. He was so arrogant, so consumed by his own narrative of virility and power, that he likely believed he was the 1 in 4,000. Or perhaps he hadn't told Bree about the vasectomy because he was afraid of losing her. And when she turned up pregnant, his narcissism filled in the gaps. Of course I beat the odds, he would think. I'm Nathaniel Caldwell. Even biology bends to my will, or worse, he suspected. But he didn't care. He wanted the prop. He wanted the do-over family to parade in front of the judge to show he was a stable, family-oriented man, contrasting with his crazy ex-wife. Catherine's phone buzzed. It was a notification for her supervised visitation with Leo. 2:00 p.m. at the King County Courthouse. The joy of her discovery evaporated. She had to see her son in a small, windowless room, watched by a court-appointed social worker who took notes every time she hugged him. The visit was agony. Leo looked different. His hair was cut short, a military-style buzz cut that Nate preferred, but Leo hated because it made his ears stick out. He was wearing stiff, preppy clothes, a polo shirt tucked into khakis. He looked like a miniature, unhappy version of Nathaniel. "Hi, baby," Catherine said, fighting back tears as she knelt to hug him. Leo stood stiffly. He didn't hug back immediately. He looked at the social worker, then at his mom. "Hi." "Mum," he said, his voice quiet. "I missed you so much. Leo, I brought your Legos, the Star Wars one you left at." She stopped herself. She couldn't say home. "The one you left with me." Leo didn't reach for the box. "Dad says those are for babies. I'm big now." Catherine's heart fractured. "Daddy said that—" "Dad says you're sick," Leo recited, looking at his shoes. "He says you have a bug in your brain that makes you sleepy and messy. He says I have to be strong and not make you upset." Catherine looked at the social worker, a woman named Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable scribbled something on her notepad. Parental alienation. Catherine hoped she was writing, but she probably wasn't. "I'm not sick, Leo," Catherine said fiercely, taking his small hands. "Look at me. Mummy is fine. Mummy is fighting for you. Do you understand?" Leo pulled his hands away. "Bree says she's going to be my new mum." The air left the room. "What did you say?" Catherine whispered. "Bree, she's nice. She lets me play video games. She says when the new baby comes, I'm going to be a big brother and we're going to be a real family again." Catherine felt a surge of nausea. They were already replacing her. They were erasing her from her son's mind, layering over her memories with video games and lies. "Leo," Catherine said, her voice trembling, "I am your mother. No one else. Ever." "Time is up," Mrs. Gable announced, checking her watch. "Mr. Caldwell is waiting outside." Catherine watched as Leo walked out the door without looking back. Through the small glass pane, she saw Nate waiting. He put a hand on Leo's shoulder, not affectionately, but possessively. He looked through the glass, locking eyes with Catherine. He winked. It was a declaration of war. Catherine walked out of the courthouse, bypassing her car. She walked 2 blocks to where Miller, the PI, was parked in his battered sedan. She got into the passenger seat, soaking wet. "He's brainwashing him," she said, her voice hard as diamond. "He's telling Leo I'm sick. He's introducing the mistress as the new mother." Miller grimaced. Classic narcissist move. Isolate and conquer. "I need to kill this. Miller, I need to kill it now. I know Nate is sterile. The baby isn't his." "We suspected that," Miller said. "Suspecting isn't enough. If I walk into court and say, he had a vasectomy, Nate will lie. He'll say it reversed. He'll say they used a donor. He'll spin it. I need to know whose baby it is. I need to know who Bree is really seeing." Miller tapped the steering wheel. "Well, that brings me to the good news. I've been tracking Miss Wallace's phone. She's not the loyal little housewife in training Nate thinks she is. Tell me, every Tuesday and Thursday, when Nate is at his late-night partner meetings, Bree leaves the Queen Anne house. She takes an Uber to a dive bar in Capitol Hill called the Rusty Nail. She stays for 2 hours. Then she comes back. Is she drinking? No. She's meeting someone." Miller pulled out a new stack of photos. They were grainy, taken in low light. Bree was in a booth at the back of the bar. Sitting across from her was a man. He was young, muscular, with tattoos sleeving his arms and a face that screamed trouble. He wasn't rich. He wasn't an architect. In one photo, he had his hand on her stomach. In another, they were kissing desperately, passionately. "Who is he?" Catherine asked. "His name is Jackson Jax Miller. No relation to me." The PI chuckled darkly. "He's a personal trainer at the luxury gym where Nate and Bree met. He's 25. He's got a record for petty theft and assault." "So she's sleeping with the help," Catherine murmured. "Does Jax know about Nate?" "Oh, he knows," Miller said. "I got close enough to hear them once. They were arguing about money. Jax wants her to leave Nate now. Bree keeps saying, 'Just wait until the ring is on my finger. Just wait until the settlement.'" Catherine stared at the photo of Jax's hand on Bree's pregnant belly. She's grifting him. Catherine realized. She's pregnant with the trainer's baby, passing it off as the heir to the Caldwell fortune to trap Nate into a marriage. Once she's legally his wife, she has claim to half his assets. She's doing to Nate exactly what Nate is doing to me. It's poetic justice, Miller noted. "No," Catherine said, her eyes narrowing. "It's my ammunition. Drive me to that gym. Now. I'm going to have a little chat with Jax." The Olympus Health Club smelled of eucalyptus and sweat. It was the kind of place that charged $300 a month and offered vitamin IV drips in the locker room. Catherine walked in, dressed in her workout gear leggings and a hoodie, cap pulled low. She wasn't a member anymore. Nate had cancelled her membership the day he filed, but she still had her keycard in her gym bag, and predictably, the front desk system hadn't updated the physical access protocols yet. She found Jax in the weight room. He was hard to miss. He was spotting a wealthy older woman on the bench press, his biceps bulging, flashing a charming, predatory smile. He looked exactly like the kind of mistake a bored, ambitious girl like Bree would make. Catherine waited until his client left. She walked up to him while he was re-racking the weights. Jackson Miller. He turned, wiping sweat from his forehead. Yeah, you looking for a session? I'm booked up until... He stopped. He looked at her face. He recognized her. Seattle was a small town, and the Caldwell divorce was the gossip of the month. Wait. You're Nate Caldwell's wife. Ex-wife, Catherine corrected, stepping closer. We need to talk. Not here. Jax laughed nervously, looking around. I don't think that's a good idea. Lady, your husband is a VIP here. If he sees me talking to you, he won't. Because if you don't talk to me, I'm going to go straight to the management and show them the photos of you sleeping with a client's fiancé. You know strict fraternization policies are part of your contract. Right. You'd be fired before you could finish your protein shake. Jax's smile vanished. What do you want? Meet me in the alley behind the building. 5 minutes. 5 minutes later. Jax pushed open the heavy steel exit door. It was still raining. Catherine was leaning against the brick wall, arms crossed. Look, I don't want any trouble, Jax said, holding his hands up. Bree and I, we're just friends. Don't insult my intelligence. Jax, I know she's pregnant. I know it's yours. Jax froze. His jaw tightened. She tell you that? No. Basic math told me that. Nate had a vasectomy 2 years ago. Unless the Holy Spirit paid Bree a visit, that baby is yours. Jax let out a long breath, kicking a puddle. Does he know? No. He thinks he's super dad. Catherine stepped off the wall. Here's what I don't get. Jax, you look like a guy who claims that's your son or daughter in there. And you're letting another man, a man who treats people like property, put his name on the birth certificate. You're letting Nate Caldwell raise your kid. It's not like that, Jax snapped defensively. Bree has a plan. She's going to marry the guy, get the prenup sorted, and then after the baby comes, she files for divorce. She gets a payout. We take the kid, and we move to LA. We're going to open our own gym. Catherine laughed. It was a harsh, biting sound. Oh, you poor idiot. Jax bristled. Watch it. Do you really think Nathaniel Caldwell signs a prenup that gives her money? Nate's prenups are ironclad. If she leaves him, she gets nothing. If she cheats on him, nothing. And if he finds out the baby isn't his after he signs the birth certificate, he will sue her for fraud, he will bankrupt her, and he will keep the child just to spite her, because he has the best lawyers money can buy. Jax looked shaken. Bree said she handled it. Bree is a 23-year-old intern who thinks she's smarter than a shark. She's going to get eaten. And you're going to lose your kid. Nate will get custody. He always wins. He's taking my son right now with lies. What do you think he'll do when he finds out you two played him? Jax ran a hand through his wet hair. So what do I do if I tell him now? He fires Bree. She gets nothing. And she blames me. She'll never speak to me again. You don't tell him, Catherine said softly. You help me. Help you how? I need proof. Irrefutable proof. I need a DNA test. You can't get a DNA test on a fetus without the mother's consent. Bree won't give it. There are non-invasive prenatal paternity tests, Catherine said. Blood from the mother, cheek swab from the father, but we can't get her blood. She paused, her mind racing. But we can get a confession. She won't talk on tape. She will if she thinks she's talking to you, Catherine said. I need you to get her to admit the baby is yours. on a recording, and I need you to admit that you knew. Why would I do that? Jax asked, crossing his arms. Because, Catherine pulled an envelope from her pocket. It wasn't money. It was a printout of the custody filing Nate had made against her. Read this. This is what Nate does to people who inconvenience him. He is destroying me. When he finds out about you, and he will find out, he has eyes everywhere. He won't just fire you. He'll plant drugs in your car. He'll have you arrested. He'll ruin your life. Jax took the paper. He scanned the brutal accusations. But if you work with me, Catherine continued, I can offer you protection. My lawyer is the best in the state. If we reveal this in court, on my terms, Nate is humiliated. The judge sees him as a fool. His case against me collapses because his perfect home is a lie. Bree gets exposed. Yes. But you get to step up as the biological father who came forward to do the right thing. The court loves a reformed father figure. You get your kid, Jax, and Bree. Well, she'll have no choice but to stick with you, because Nate will throw her out on the street. Jax stared at the rain for a long moment. He looked at the paper, then at Catherine. He realized that the woman standing in front of him wasn't a victim. She was a general marshalling her troops. What do I have to do? Jax asked. Tonight, Catherine said. Meet her. Wear a wire. I'll provide it. Get her to say the words, the baby is yours. Jax, not Nate's. And get her to say, Nate doesn't know. And then, Catherine smiled. You give that recording to me, and you wait for the subpoena. The trap was set, but Catherine knew that in a game against Nathaniel, things rarely went according to plan. 2 days later, she received a frantic call from Evelyn. Catherine, turn on the TV. Channel 5. What is it? Catherine asked, fumbling for the remote. It's Nate. He's escalating. Catherine turned on the TV. There, standing on the steps of the courthouse, was Nathaniel Caldwell. He was holding a press conference. Bree was by his side, looking pale but beautiful in a modest white dress, her hand resting protectively on her small baby bump. Reporters were flashing cameras. Nate looked somber, serious. My family is under attack. Nate spoke into the microphones. My ex-wife, Catherine, has not only neglected our son, but is now harassing my fiancée, Brianna. We have received threats. Catherine is spiraling out of control. Because of this, and to ensure the safety of my unborn child and my son Leo, we are filing an emergency motion to suspend all of Catherine's visitation rights immediately. Catherine dropped the phone. He's accusing me of harassment, she yelled at the screen. He knows. Catherine. Evelyn's voice came from the handset on the floor. He knows you're digging. He's trying to cut you off before you find anything. We have a hearing in 48 hours. If we don't have that proof by then, you're going to lose Leo indefinitely. Catherine looked at the clock. Jax was supposed to meet Bree in 3 hours. If Nate knew she was digging. Did he know about Jax? Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. He knows. He's at the gym. He's looking for Jax. It was from Miller. Catherine grabbed her keys. She didn't have 48 hours. She didn't even have 3 hours. The timeline had just collapsed. She had to get to Jax before Nate did. Because if Nate got to him first, with his checkbook and his threats, Jax would flip, or worse, he would disappear. Catherine ran to her car. The final showdown wasn't going to be in a courtroom. It was starting tonight. The rain in Seattle doesn't wash things clean. It just makes the grime slicker. Catherine drove her Volvo like a getaway car, tires screeching on the wet pavement as she tore toward Jax's apartment complex in Capitol Hill. It was a nondescript brick building, the kind with rusted fire escapes and overflowing dumpsters, a far cry from the manicured lawns of Queen Anne. She parked haphazardly, half on the curb. Miller's text had been clear. Nate's fixer is en route. You have 10 minutes. Catherine took the stairs 2 at a time, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She pounded on door 3B. No answer. She could hear crashing sounds inside drawers being pulled out. Things breaking. Jax opened the door. It's Catherine. The door swung open. Jax stood there, wild-eyed, a duffel bag in one hand and a stack of cash in the other. The apartment was trashed. "Go away," he shouted, trying to shove past her. "I'm done. I'm out." Catherine pushed him back inside and slammed the door, locking the deadbolt. "You're not going anywhere. If you run, you look guilty. If you run, Nate wins." He already won. Jax paced the small room, running a hand through his hair. "His guy. Some guy in a suit. He just called me. He said they know about the baby. He said if I don't disappear tonight, they're going to find a kilo of cocaine in my locker tomorrow morning. I can't go to prison. Catherine, I have strikes on my record. He's bluffing. Jax, he's trying to scare you because he's terrified. He offered me 50 grand to leave town." Jax spat, throwing the cash on the cheap laminate table. 50 grand to never see my kid again. And you took it. I haven't taken anything yet, but I'm going to. I can't fight him. He's got lawyers, judges, police. "And I have the truth," Catherine said, grabbing his shoulders. "Listen to me. Nate is sterile. He knows he can't be the father, but he's pretending to be because he needs the image of a perfect family to take my son. Once he has Leo, he will discard Bree. He will realize the baby isn't his, or maybe he already knows and plans to sue her for fraud later. Either way, Bree ends up with nothing, and your child ends up in the system or raised by a nanny while Nate ignores it." Jax stopped pacing. The fight drained out of him. "He's a monster. He is. But monsters are scared of the light. If you run, he hunts you down eventually. If you stay and help me, we end him. Publicly, legally, permanently." A heavy pounding echoed on the door. "Jackson Miller." A deep voice boomed from the hallway. "Open up. We just want to talk." Jax froze, his eyes widening in terror. "That's him. That's the fixer." Catherine looked at the fire escape window. "Do you trust me?" "No," Jax whispered. "Good. Trusting people is what got us into this mess. Trust the plan." She pointed to the window. "Go out the fire escape. Miller is waiting in the alley in a grey sedan. He'll take you to a safe house. Do not answer your phone. Do not call Bree." "What about Bree?" "I'll handle Bree," Catherine said, her eyes cold. "She's the one who started this. She's the one who has to finish it." Jax scrambled out the window, just as the lock on the front door shattered with a deafening crack. Catherine stood in the center of the living room, her arms crossed, as the door flew open. 2 men in dark suits stepped in. They weren't police. They were private security, Nate's goons. They looked around the empty room, then at Catherine. "Mrs. Caldwell," the larger one said. "Surprised. We weren't expecting you." "I'm sure you weren't," Catherine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "If you're looking for Mr. Miller, he's gone. And if you're looking for a fight, I suggest you check the hallway. I've been live streaming this entire encounter to my cloud server for the last 3 minutes. She held up her phone. It was a bluff, but men like this lived in fear of digital footprints. The men exchanged a look. We were just here to offer Mr. Miller a job. I bet. Catherine smiled thinly. Tell my husband he's going to need better henchmen, and tell him I'll see him in court. They left. Catherine collapsed onto the sofa. Shaking, she had saved Jax, but she still didn't have the smoking gun. She needed Bree to admit the lie, and she needed her to do it before 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. She picked up Jax's discarded phone, which he had left on the table in his panic. A text message notification lit up the screen. Bree, where are you? Nate is acting weird. He's drinking. I'm scared. Catherine stared at the message. An opportunity. She typed back, posing as Jax meet me at the viewpoint on Highland Drive. Midnight. I have a way out. Highland Drive offered a panoramic view of the city, the rain turning the lights of Seattle into smeared watercolors. Catherine sat in the back of Miller's car, hidden in the shadows. Bree's white Range Rover, a gift from Nate, pulled up. Bree got out, holding an umbrella, looking around nervously. She looked younger than 23 in the harsh streetlights. She looked like a child playing dress-up in a woman's life. Catherine stepped out. Bree gasped, dropping her umbrella. You, Bree whispered, backing away. Where is Jax? Jax is safe, Catherine said, walking closer. The rain soaked her hair, plastering it to her face, but she didn't care. Unlike you, I'm calling Nate. Go ahead, ask him about his vasectomy. Bree froze, her thumb hovering over her phone screen. What? 2 years ago, Dr. Aris, bilateral vasectomy. Nate is sterile. Bree. He shoots blanks. He has known since the day you told him you were pregnant that the baby isn't his. Bree's face crumpled. No. He was so happy. He bought the crib. He announced it to the press. He's using you. Catherine stepped into Bree's personal space. He needs a prop to win custody of Leo. He needs to look like a stable family man. Once he wins the case tomorrow, what do you think happens to you? Do you think he raises another man's child? He'll throw you out. He'll sue you for paternity fraud. You'll go to jail. Bree. And he will destroy Jax just for fun. Bree began to sob, the sound lost in the wind. I didn't mean for this to happen. I wanted to be safe. Nate has so much money. I thought, if I gave him a baby. You thought you could trap a shark with a drop of blood, Catherine said. Listen to me. You have one chance. One chance to stay out of prison. One chance to keep your baby. How? Bree choked out. You're going to come to court tomorrow, and you're going to tell the truth. I can't. Nate will kill me. Nate will destroy you if you lie, Catherine corrected. But if you tell the truth, you become a victim of his manipulation. You become the brave young woman who stood up to a tyrant. I will protect you. My lawyer will protect you. But you have to choose right now. The Range Rover or your child. The lie or the truth. Bree looked at her stomach. She placed a hand over it. She looked at Catherine, the woman whose life she had tried to steal. In Catherine's eyes, she saw not hatred, but a fierce, terrifying resolve. Okay, Bree whispered. Okay. The courtroom was packed. The press had smelled blood in the water. The Caldwell versus Caldwell case had become a media circus, fueled by Nate's press conference and the crazy ex-wife narrative. Nathaniel sat at the plaintiff's table, looking immaculate in a charcoal suit. He didn't look at Catherine. He was confident. His lawyer, Sam Halloway, was arranging papers with the precision of an undertaker. Judge Harrison banged his gavel. "We are here for the final ruling on custody regarding the minor child, Leo Caldwell. Mr. Halloway, you may proceed." Halloway stood. "Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Doctor, Catherine Caldwell is unstable, erratic, and has engaged in a campaign of harassment against my client and his pregnant fiancée. Mr. Caldwell offers a stable, loving, two-parent home. We ask for full legal and physical custody, with supervised visitation for the mother only upon proof of rehabilitation." Nate nodded solemnly, wiping a fake tear from his eye. "Ms. Harper." The judge turned to Evelyn. Evelyn stood up slowly. She wasn't holding any papers. She was smiling. It was the smile of a predator who had just trapped its prey. "Your Honor," Evelyn said, her voice ringing clear, "we agree that stability is the most important factor here. We agree that honesty is paramount, which is why we would like to present new evidence regarding the stable family unit. Mr. Caldwell claims to have created—" "Objection," Halloway shot up. "Discovery is closed." "This is rebuttal evidence, Your Honor," Evelyn countered smoothly. "It directly addresses the credibility of the plaintiff's testimony regarding his current family status." "I'll allow it," Judge Harrison said. Intrigued, "Proceed. Call Dr. George Arris to the stand." Nate's head snapped up. His face went pale. He whispered frantically to Halloway. Halloway looked confused. "Doctor." Arris took the stand. He looked nervous but determined. "Under oath." He confirmed it all. "Mr. Caldwell underwent a vasectomy on March 12th, 2022. Post-operative testing confirmed ozoospermia. He is sterile." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The reporters began typing furiously. "So," Evelyn continued, pacing in front of the witness stand, "it would be medically impossible for Mr. Caldwell to be the biological father of Miss Wallace's unborn child." "That is correct." Evelyn turned to Nate. "Mr. Caldwell, you swore in your affidavit that you were expecting a child with Ms. Wallace. Did you lie to this court, or are you the victim of a medical miracle?" Nate stood up, his composure cracking. "This is a violation of my privacy. That doctor is breaching privilege. The privacy of the child supersedes your privilege when you use that child as a weapon in a custody battle." Evelyn shouted back. "Sit down, Mr. Caldwell." Judge Harrison barked. "Your Honor," Evelyn said, lowering her voice, "we have one more witness, someone who can clear up the paternity of the child and the nature of Mr. Caldwell's stable home. We call Brianna Wallace." The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. Nate turned around. His eyes bulged. Bree walked in. She wasn't wearing the expensive clothes Nate had bought her. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. She looked terrified, but she walked straight to the stand. Halloway tried to object, but the judge silenced him. Bree took the oath. She sat down, refusing to look at Nate. "Ms. Wallace," Evelyn asked gently, "who is the father of your unborn child?" "Jackson Miller," Bree whispered into the microphone. "And does Mr. Caldwell know this?" "Yes," Bree said, her voice gaining strength. He found my medical records a month ago. He knew." "Then why did he continue to claim the child was his—" "Because he said—" Bree started crying. "He said he needed the perfect picture to beat Catherine. He said if I played along, he would pay off my student loans and give me a stipend. He said if I didn't, he would hurt Jax. He said he would ruin us. Lies, Nate screamed. He slammed his fist on the table. She's lying. She's a whore. She seduced me. The courtroom erupted. Order. Judge Harrison banged the gavel repeatedly. He threatened to plant drugs on Jax. Bree shouted over the noise. He hired men to scare us. He doesn't care about the baby. He doesn't care about Leo. He just wants to win. You ungrateful little bit. Nate lunged toward the witness stand. Bailiffs tackled him. The immaculate suit was crumpled. The mask was gone. The calm, collected architect was replaced by a red-faced, screaming tyrant. Catherine sat perfectly still, watching him. She watched the man who had tormented her for months be dragged back to his chair by 2 officers. She saw the fear in his eyes, not fear of her, but fear of the loss of control. Enough, Judge Harrison roared. The room fell silent. The judge looked at Nate with pure disgust. He looked at the trembling Bree. He looked at Catherine. Mr. Caldwell, Judge Harrison said, his voice ice-cold. In 20 years on the bench, I have never seen a more appalling display of manipulation and perjury. You have attempted to defraud this court. You have intimidated witnesses. You have psychologically abused your wife and child. Your Honor, Holloway tried to intervene. Silence, counsel, Harrison snapped. I am issuing a temporary ruling immediately. Full legal and physical custody of Leo Caldwell is awarded to the mother, Catherine Caldwell, effective immediately. Catherine let out a sob, covering her mouth with her hand. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am issuing a permanent restraining order against Nathaniel Caldwell for both Catherine and Leo Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell, you are to have no contact with them. You are also remanded into custody, pending a hearing on charges of perjury and witness intimidation. Bailiffs, take him. Nate was handcuffed. As they led him away, he looked at Catherine one last time. There was no smirk. There was only the hollow, empty look of a man who had built a glass house and thrown the first stone. Catherine stood up. She walked over to Bree, who was still shaking in the witness box. Catherine didn't hug her, that would be too much. But she reached out and squeezed Bree's hand. Thank you, Catherine whispered. Bree looked down, tears streaming. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Catherine turned and walked out of the courtroom. The reporters swarmed her, microphones thrust in her face, asking how she felt. I feel, Catherine said, looking into the cameras, like going to pick up my son. The jewel box on Queen Anne Hill was sold 3 months later. It went for $2 million under asking price because of the scandal attached to it. Catherine didn't care. She didn't want the money. She wanted the memories purged. With her half of the assets which Evelyn had ruthlessly secured, along with substantial damages for emotional distress, Catherine bought a sprawling, messy farmhouse on Bainbridge Island. It wasn't modern. It wasn't made of glass. It had creaky floorboards, a big wraparound porch, and a yard full of mud where a boy could run. 6 months after the trial, Catherine sat on the porch, watching the sunset over the Puget Sound. Leo was in the yard. He was different now. The military buzz cut had grown out into shaggy, sun-bleached curls. He was wearing dirty jeans and a t-shirt stained with grass. He was laughing. He was throwing a frisbee to a dog, a golden retriever puppy they had named Justice. "Mum, watch this," Leo yelled, tossing the frisbee. Catherine smiled, sipping her tea. "Great throw." Leo. It hadn't been easy. The first few weeks were hard. Leo had nightmares. He asked about his dad constantly. He had to unlearn the lies Nate had fed him. He had to learn that it was okay to cry, okay to make a mess, okay to be imperfect. They went to therapy together. Slowly. The shadows lifted. Nate was currently serving a 3-year sentence for perjury and obstruction of justice. His license to practice architecture had been revoked. The firm had dissolved. He sent letters from prison, but Catherine burned them unopened. Leo didn't need to read them. Not yet. As for Bree and Jax, Catherine had heard through Miller that they had moved back to Oregon. They were running a small CrossFit gym. They had a baby girl. They were struggling. They were fighting. But they were together. Catherine didn't wish them ill. She just wished them away. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. Catherine put down her tea. She walked into the yard and tackled her son into a pile of leaves. Leo shrieked with joy, the sound echoing through the trees, a sound of pure, unadulterated childhood. She had lost the glass house, the prestige, and the perfect marriage. But as she held her laughing son, feeling his small heart beat against hers, Catherine knew she had won the only thing that mattered. She had won her life back. And that, my friends, is how Catherine Caldwell toppled a narcissist's empire with nothing but a medical file and the truth. It's a terrifying reminder that the perfect families we see on the outside often hide the darkest secrets on the inside. Nate thought he could design his life like one of his buildings, controlling every angle, every view. But he forgot that the tighter you squeeze the glass, the harder it shatters. Now, I have a question for you. If you were Catherine, would you have helped Bree, or would you have let her go down with the ship? It's a tough choice. Let me know what you would have done in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have a crazy tale coming up next week about a lottery winner whose husband tried to fake his own death. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.